Hello, hello,
Kirk.
Kirk.
Hello. Hello. So
How are you
good to see
doing?
you. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's
You
beautiful here in New York. Yeah.
good, good. You look nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm. It's
Been
great to
pleasant.
have you here
Thank you.
with our Chinese audience. We have hundreds of them in our live stream room.
Wonderful. Well, welcome to you all.
Yes, yes.
I hope you can fit into my room here.
Oh, yes,
It's small.
yes. Today we are going to have an interview. So I will ask you some questions. In the last leg, we will also have some audiences to ask you some questions. Thank you for accepting our invitation. It's our privilege to have you here.
My privilege to be with you.
Thank you. Shall we start?
Yes, I think everything's working okay. Sound,
Good.
video, good.
I will first give people the introduction of you. Everyone, it is my privilege to have Dr. Kirk Schneider here with us today, accepting my interview. I think there are many Chinese people have heard of Dr. Schneider by reading his books. You know, some books of him have been translated into Chinese. And also some people might have opportunities to listen to his lecture back over 10 years ago at our international conference on existential psychology in Nanjing, in Shanghai, and Guangzhou. So we had the privilege to have Dr. Schneider speaking to our audience in the past years. Dr. Schneider has constantly been coming to China, participating the conferences, doing workshops, promoting, the East-West dialogue, especially in the area of existential psychology. Still, I would like to give a formal introduction of him. Dr. Kirk Schneider is a leading spokesperson for existential humanistic psychology. He is founder and current president of the award-winning Existential Humanistic Institute. We often call it EHI. He was also a 2022 candidate for president-elect of the American Psychological Association. Dr. Schneider is the recipient of the Rollo May Award from Division 32 of the APA for outstanding and independent pursuit of new frontiers in humanistic psychology. He is also the author and co-author of 16 books, along with over 200 articles and chapters. His books include The Paradoxical Self, Psychology of Existence, Existential Integrative Psychotherapy, The Handbook of Humanistic Psychology, Existential Humanistic Therapy, The Willy World Handbook of Existential Therapy, Rediscovery of All, Polarized Mind, and his latest highly acclaimed book, Life Enhancing Anxiety, Key to a Sane World. So only to name a few. Several of his books have been translated into Chinese, German, and some other languages in the world. Dr. Snyder owns a global reputation, especially in the area of existential humanistic psychology. So I will let, after this introduction, I will let Dr. Snyder, I sometimes call him Kirk, because we're friends.
Please.
So I will invite him to speak to you. So after that, I will ask him some questions. So I expect a very inspiring speech from him. Thank you, Kirk.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wang, and if I may call you Xuefu.
Yes, of course.
Much appreciate your introduction and being with you all here. I guess what I would add to your list, not to burden people, but my main focus these days has been on completing this new book, which should be out in June,
yes,
called The Vibrant Center, A New Consciousness for Our Broken Age. And it's really an attempt to bring more of a centering to our consciousness, as distinct from the polarization that we seem to be so frequently caught up in these days, especially in our society. But societies like ours, or industrialized societies, power centers in the world today, seem to be very attached to what I call a polarized mind. The fixation on a single point of view to the utter exclusion of competing points of view. And this is a very big and destructive problem for our world, especially since we have so many powerful weapons. And it seems to me that to some degree we may be in a race against time as far as helping our world consciousness move more toward a centering position. I think those of you who are very identified with Buddhism and Taoism can relate to this basic idea. It's similar. I define the vibrant center as a pivot point of choice and discernment. Choice and discernment, meaning the capacity to slow down, to become more present to ourselves, to the flow of life, to others. And from that position, that centered position, more or less, greater capacity to survey the possibilities around us, the different sides of a given problem or dilemma that faces us. And from there, we have a greater capacity to be discerning, meaning prioritize. How are we going to live based on what is before us? Okay, so now how are we going to live? How are we going to make a moral or ethical decision about our lives? But the point is, we're coming more from a place of responsiveness, as I call it, rather than reactivity. Reactivity is a kind of a knee-jerk position, like when the physician hits your knee and the reflex of your leg goes up immediately, right? So I think we have a lot of reactivity, which leads to the polarized mind. And reactivity tends to come from a fear-based perspective, where we're scrambling, we're in panic. It's a destructive anxiety, rather than what I would call a presence-based approach, where again, we can center ourselves be more present to what is before us and within us, and make the choice from there. So I also define it in terms of three pillars: the vibrant center, presence, or the capacity to really be there with one's whole body awareness in oneself and between oneself and others and the world. And out of that presence, openness to experience, capacity to open to the various sides of the problem, the challenge before us, or just the experience before us. And then from the openness to experience, naturally coming to a place of, okay, so how do I now respond? What decision do I now make, given this openness that I experience? And that's where discernment comes in. But it can only come in if we've taken some time to immerse ourselves in these various sides of our experience. And from there, I think we have a better chance of making a more enduring and substantive decision, as opposed to, again, to a very fear-based reactive decision about our lives. So I don't know if you want me to continue. This draws from existential humanistic psychology, philosophy. It draws from depth psychology, which originated in psychoanalysis and now is considered, I'd say, more broadly psychodynamic theory, because it goes very deep. And I see existential humanistic therapy and psychology really in today's terms as a psychodynamic approach, that it goes very deep. It involves what we might call unconscious or subconscious processes, because I do feel that our fears begin at the beginning. They're existential fears, ontological fears. So I very much resonate with Otto Rank's ideas about the template for virtually all future anxiety and trauma is birth, our coming into the world. That forms the beginning of our confrontation with existence. And it's a very impressionable time. It's a very powerful time, very powerful, physically and mentally, emotionally. That radical shift between relative non-being and unity with the mother and with the cosmos we come out of, to sudden abrupt being and chaos that we're thrown into, as Heidegger might put it. And that is the, I think, primal tension we begin with. But we also have an inherent capacity not just to be terrorized by that, but also to begin to be curious and wonder about it, to look around. These are the seeds of presence, the seeds of the capacity to be curious, to be more discovery-oriented rather than fear-oriented. The problem is with our parental systems and our cultural systems, they are too often fear-based, with all kinds of assumptions and prejudices that come right in as soon as the kid is born. And if the kid is surrounded by terror of the radically unknown that he or she comes into, terror of that which is different and other, and that's the beginning of, I would say, too often, a very narrow or superficial life, or in worst cases, a very destructive life, because we reach for absolutes and a grandiose position that can be very destructive.
Yes.
this is where I'll
Yes.
begin, if that's okay.
Great. Great. As far as I can recall, I met Dr. Schneider back almost 20 years ago when I was a visiting scholar at Fuller Graduate School of Psychology. That was in 2008, 2009. I remember I was invited to a conference of Existential Psychology at the University of Colorado, where I was introduced to Dr. Schneider. And I had a very brief conversation with him. And I also took part in his workshop. So my very deep impression of him was that he's a deep thinker and a genuine therapist. Ever since, I have been following his development of psychology. In my mind, he's a renovator of existential humanistic psychology all the way. I was really attracted to your constant renovation of ideas, like fluidity center, like all-based psychology, like existential depth psychology, existential integrative psychology. I don't know where I can call it, the psychology of resilience.
Yeah.
From fluidity center and to the right now vibrant center of living.
Yeah.
So that's really amazing. When I read your ideas, it resonates with me. With my therapeutic experience, I say, sometimes I'm feeling so resonating, sometimes I feel so inspiring. I also would like to our Chinese audience know that there is Rollo May in the United States who is called the father of existential psychology of America.
Yes.
While Dr. Schneider once followed Rollo May as his graduate student. And later they became colleagues, collaborating on authoring books. So I read from your new book, The Vibrant Center. I didn't finish it. I will take some more time in depth reading. So you quote Rollo May by saying, finding the center of strength within ourselves is in the long run the best contribution we can make to our fellow human beings.
Yes.
So can I say that Rollo May is a major source of inspiration to you? Yes. Because I can trace that from Rollo May by the center of strength. So would you give us a brief introduction of how you develop all these renovative ideas? So give people a kind of understanding.
Well, first of all, that's a beautiful line, and that's why I use it as the capstone from the book, because he's really focusing on both the need to develop our own center of strength, our own will, if you will, along with and informing our communal living. It's both. And it reminds me of Martin Buber's idea of I thou as well, that there are two individuals, but we meet. And so we're separate but related, and both are really important. And I think we naturally come into an appreciation of the communal connections that we have. as we deepen our presence, because we realize that we're all part of each other, and that we also have to get along with one another. and not only have to, but there's a beauty to discovering and growing together. That's how we evolve as human beings. So I love that quote.
Yes.
I began with Rollo. I mean, my earliest contact with him was actually in a book by Maurice Friedman called The Worlds of Existentialism, when I was probably an undergraduate student. I loved that book because it gave little paragraphs from great existential philosophers and psychologists, and Rollo's was in there, and I was very impressed. And that brought me to his book, Existence, which is the book that brought European existential philosophy and psychology to America in 1958. Yes. So I had been following him for a long time, but I had the wonderful opportunity to connect with him when I began my studies at the Humanistic Psychology Institute in 1980, which is now Saybrook University. And I feel like the main attractor, the main resonance that we experienced was around paradox. That was his core emphasis, I would say, was the realization of human beings as both food for worms, if you will, and soaring angels at the same time. And that this was our basic dilemma, and that we needed to face the fact that we are creatures, but also have some godlike, might be too strong, but we have the great capacity to transcend, to create, to participate in something much greater than ourselves as a spirituality. And we're also very vulnerable, fragile creatures who are passing in time. So this concept was very resonant for me. And in my early papers in philosophy, I was a philosophy minor as well as a psychology major. And I was already writing papers about our relationship to infinity. That was my big thing. And I think I got some of that from my studies of Kierkegaard too. And, and Rollo did too, the finite and infinite tension, the dialectic between the finite human and the infinite possibility. In any case, paradox was very important, and we began to bond as I got to know him. I was very fortunate to have some early courses with him and to interview him for our school. And we began to become friends, and also concerned about some trends in the transpersonal psychology movement that seemed to be overreaching, equating human beings with God directly. And we felt that this was not only an inaccurate phenomenology of the human being, but potentially dangerous. Because when leaders, whether, psychological or spiritual or governmental, equate themselves with God, we have a setup for tyranny. So this was something that bonded us. We felt that it was moving away from that basic paradox of the human being, smallness and greatness in combination. And if you cut off either one, you have cut off the core of what it means to be more fully human. So this is how we began. We wrote some articles about this, challenging some people in what's called transpersonal psychology in America, in particular Ken Wilber's writing at the time, where he talked about a seamless unity between self and not self. And it seemed to us that this was a little presumptuous and also maybe not all that invigorating as far as the human experience, because our vulnerability is as important as our capacity to transcend and self-create. This is what makes a fuller life, to be the capacity to be deeply moved by living.
Great. I just see a reflection from one of our audience. He said, your talk on paradox broadened my eyesight. So it also brings me back over 20 years ago when I was studied at Andrew Newton Theological School. I read Rollo May's The Meaning of Anxiety.
Yes.
So I got to know that Rollo May also received quite some inspiration or influences from Kierkegaard.
Yes.
And so while I read Kierkegaard, according to my sense of humble sense of perception, his paradoxical thinking is such a source of wisdom.
Yes.
So I remember that Rollo May say I follow more on Kierkegaard than on Freud on reality, on anxiety. So that's very interesting when he was in a serious illness. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Rollo discovered Kierkegaard, especially his concept of anxiety, when he had tuberculosis and he was struggling between life and death.
Yes.
And he found sustenance in Kierkegaard's notion that anxiety could be like a school that teaches you how to live a fuller and more enriching life if you could learn from this very difficult school. Called it the school of anxiety, actually. We need more of those. Not the school of destructive anxiety, but the school that goes deeper beneath the destructive anxiety from the beginning. Yes. The school to help us be more present to the signal of anxiety.
I was also impressed with your lecture at back 3 years ago at in Grace. So you gave a keynote speech on the theme of life-enhancing anxiety.
Yes,
that's what you just said, right?
Yes, right? Exactly. Yeah,
that's very inspiring. I would like you also to give a brief introduction of this concept to our Chinese audience.
Yes, well, I think we have so much destructive anxiety in the world, precisely because we fail to address the underlying and potentially constructive anxiety that I call life-enhancing anxiety.
Yes.
That is underneath this destructive anxiety. We don't learn to work with that potentially constructive anxiety from the beginning of life enough. And so what I mean by life-enhancing anxiety is the capacity to live with and make the best of the depth and mystery of existence.
Great.
This is a Kierkegaardian notion as well, but I'm framing it in more contemporary terms and trying to take it forward. Another way to put it in more concrete terms is the capacity to live more on the edge of wonder and discovery rather than terror and overwhelm. And this, to me, is the aim, in many ways, of good existential humanistic or good depth psychotherapy, is to help people move from a place of basic terror and overwhelm and narrow horizons in their experience to much more of a discovery orientation, curiosity, or just very succinctly to live life more as an adventure, rather than going through motions mechanically, or going through motions because of fear. You have to do this, you have to do that, because you can't take time to be more present, to engage in dialogue with your inner self and with the world. And it narrows as a result. Now, I want to be clear here that I'm not talking about some kind of paradise. And I recognize very much that if the life of your family is threatened, all bets are off. Meaning you virtually cannot, or it's very difficult, to be in this place of a vibrant center if your life is directly threatened. You almost instinctually, I would do everything I could to defend myself or my family, my loved ones. So this is a growing problem. The more we become directly threatened, physically threatened, the less we have a capacity to engage in life-enhancing anxiety or the vibrant center, to put the affirmative side of life-enhancing anxiety. It's a vibrant place. It's a wonderful place. If we have the safety and the support with our parents and with the culture to engage in that. But if you don't have that safety, very difficult. And so
in the therapeutic process, we have to work with clients, especially when they are vibrant center is lucid and threat, especially those serious threat, traumatized kind of experience, whatever. So we need to help them to restore their vibrant center.
Yes, I think so. And this is where the integrative existential therapy comes in too.
Yes.
Because not everybody is ready to begin that journey into the vibrant center, to begin that journey of staying with uncomfortable feelings, thoughts, images. And so we provide a space where it's available in terms of our way of relating to that person, our presence to that person. And I think you do that beautifully, Xuefu, with Jimian, and facing directly and providing the space for people to begin to come into the vibrant center. But we need to address people where they live. And sometimes where they live is get through the night. Help them.
So if we are in constant avoidance or escape, we will lose our vibrant center.
Yes. But sometimes we need to help build a person to a place where they can then begin to move away from escaping and face.
Now I become more interested in your new book, The Vibrant Center. I remember, recently we had some email exchanges. In one of your letters, I read this. You said, I'm actually in the process of completing a new book.
Yes.
Tentatively entitled The Vibrant Center, The New Consciousness of Our Broken Age. And you said this book is the culmination of many of my previous books that draws from existential depth psychology, but as applied to the emerging vision of social well-being. That's what you say, the ambition.
Yes, big ambition.
Project.
Yeah, I
Yes.
probably take on too. I do take on too much, but I figure we only have a certain amount of space and time, and I might as well throw it out there for, we sometimes write for the future, not only for our present.
Right.
And so I hope it reaches people presently, but I also am putting it out there for future generations, perhaps, to really reflect on the direction we're moving, especially with technology and AI. That this is a very challenging direction for the cultivation of a vibrant center, a fluid center, because I think it makes it harder and harder for people to develop the attention span that's required to be more fully present. And not only the attention, but the will to struggle, the will to work with uncomfortable ideas, uncomfortable feelings, uncomfortable relationships, person to person. And the more that diminishes, I'm afraid the more we become like machines.
Mm-hmm. So when I listening to your talk, I began to realize that your different concepts, different ideas are not isolate from each other, separate from each other. They form a kind of coherent system.
Yeah.
So I remember back some years ago, you talked on fluidity center. So it gives me the inspiration that when we work with people, so-called symptoms often kind of have a kind of fixation or inflexibility, something like that. So fluidity or fluid, so it's a kind of approach to dissolve some kind of fixation or inflexibility, or we call over rigidity or rigid conceptualization like that.
Yes.
So my question is also about how do you develop from fluidity center to the vibrant center?
Great question.
What are the differences and similarities between these two centers, or they are the same from the same origin, whatever?
Right. Well, I would say that the vibrant center is a further development of the fluid center.
Yes.
The fluid center is a kind of foundational stage of development, if you will, that emphasizes our ability to move more freely within our capacities to constrict or to focus, discipline ourselves, and our capacities to expand, to take risks, to venture out, to be bolder. And this is a beautiful idea, I feel, very much similar to, again, a Taoist notion, I believe. But what I'm emphasizing with the Vibrant Center is not just the state of being fluid and centered, but the richness, the vitality that can come out of that paradoxical living. I'm trying to convey to people that this can be a wonderfully life-affirming place to go to. And I'm not sure that the terms fluid center captures that kind of vitality, that kind of liveliness, that kind of richness of living that the Vibrant Center does. Vibrant Center, in some sense, maybe is the peak of a fluid-centered life. Now, we can't keep it up all the time, I realize, but it's a kind of North Star, if you will, that we can, just trying to show that we can move toward not only living flexibly and, what's the word? Trying to think of a word that captures that rhythmic movement elastically, but that there's a beauty, there's an amazement in that living, an awesomeness in that living, sense of awe, the acute awareness of our smallness and greatness, our humility and wonder, our capacity for adventure of living. And I'm also clarifying, I think, in more accessible terms, I believe, the Vibrant Center resting on those three pillars of cultivating presence, openness to experience, and discernment as the anchors. So I do see it as a further refinement of fluid center. I still very much embrace the notion of a fluid center, but I'm also trying to convey to people a vision of a world that not just survives or survives well, but that thrives, that can thrive. I think we need that.
Great. Also, from my perception, that your book always hinges on your observation, your concern of how the world is going. Your concern about those challenges and crises when human beings falling apart or losing in a certain state, like polarities or polarization, and all those very crucial issues. So you turn to respond to the challenges, crisis of the world, trying to pave a way or approach for people to reflect on the situation of the world and for the benefit of human welfare. So you follow very close with how the world is situated, is moving. So that's your psychology, which I very appreciate.
Thank you.
It's not something away from the reality. It's something transcendentally somewhere else, but right in here, focusing on those problems and difficulties human beings are faced with.
Well, I think to be a good existentialist, you got to do that.
Yes, that's right.
I mean,
that's right.
Come on, let's look at, as you say, facing life directly, facing life soberly. I love Ernest Becker's idea in his book, a great classic. I also draw much inspiration from.
The book is translated into Chinese already.
Oh, wonderful. Denial of Death.
Yes, The Denial of Death.
He talks about trying to, in that work, trying to see the world as starkly and soberly as possible. To look at our situation directly.
Yes.
And go from there, rather than skimming surfaces or making things, glossing things over with pretty appearances. In other words, getting to the roiling of the waves under the Titanic rather than rearranging deck chairs and making it look pretty. Let's get down to what is fueling all this. Attempt a deep understanding, and I think this is what phenomenology is really all about. Our foundation, the deepest, most intimate understanding that human beings can have of our personal and collective situation. And so, yes, I mean, my wife will tell you I'm crazy about the news. I watch the news much too much.
Yes.
And I look at every station, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the conservative and the liberal.
Yes.
I do. I try my best to look at the whole range of these perspectives.
Great.
And from there, try to form responses again, rather than just reactions. It's easy to have reactions. I have thrown things at the TV.
Great.
In anger.
So I remember you give, I was impressed, a bit delighted, because I'm resonating with you in concerning of the same theme. The movie Conclave.
Yes.
So I watched the Conclave. So I was so deeply interested and impressed with the theme, certainty and uncertainty.
Yes.
So I got to know that you give a lecture on Conclave.
Oh, yeah.
At the online conference of EM, Existential Movement.
Yes.
So I also read from your book that you have a paragraph especially on this with a quote from the movie. So would you like to say something about uncertainty? This is one of the existential givens.
Yes. Well, again, I go back to our primal experience in being born. I think we're thrown into a chaotic situation. The radically unknown, I believe, is perhaps the most powerful fear and difficulty for the human being. I'm fond of quoting writers and artists because I think they're sometimes the best phenomenologists.
Yes.
Even though we do well, in our more abstract way. But the writer of classic horror books and films, H.P. Lovecraft, wrote a beautiful essay on horror, what scares human beings. And he said that the oldest and strongest emotion of humankind is fear. And the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. I believe that this is very true, and it impacts just about every major sector of our lives, from child rearing to the educational setting, to the work setting, to the religious and spiritual settings, which speaks to our discussion of conclave, to the governmental setting. How the fear of the radically unknown pushes people to narrow their perceptions often, or to grab onto absolutes for fear of falling into that unknown, that abyss. Without the skills, see, this is the big point, without the skills to work with it, except for very small pockets of relatively non-dogmatic spiritual and philosophical groups through history, in my study in the polarized mind of historical periods, except for those small pockets, the power centers of the world have not encouraged or supported contact with our inner lives nearly enough, it seems to me, and therefore have not given people the skills and tools to work with those, scary places like the radically unknown, that which is different. If you think about classic horror, they involve monsters often that are deranged. There's a derangement of one's perception. So the face is not what it's supposed to be. It looks very radically different. It's radically other. Or the size is radically other. The way of communicating or relating is radically other. This comes through in almost all the great science fiction and classic horror books and films. And I do think that, again, goes back to our primal terror of that which is out of the ordinary, out of the safe and familiar. And we're much too quick, I think, in most of our societies to go to safe and familiar alone, rather than giving some time and place for people to work with the uncomfortable, the deranging. Now, I'll give you another analogy that I find helpful and I think is helpful for psychotherapy. When we go down into a dark basement, it's scary. You can't see, right? So we're immediately reacting. We react to something that's sticking out. It might stab us, right? We have to be careful around corners. There's things in there that are threatening. They seem very threatening. But then if we can stay with it, and often through accompaniment with a fellow witness who has been there, what Alice Miller calls a helpful witness, somebody who has had experience with these difficult places and can hold them and be present to them. If we can stay with the threat of that dark basement, our eyes begin to adjust to the light, and we begin to see objects that we thought were going to harm us as something interesting, perhaps. Oh, that's that ping pong table, that I played with my dad on, or that's the rake that I thought was going to stick me. That's the rake I used to clean the yard. That's the ball that I almost fell on, that I used to play, basketball or whatever. My point being, if we can stay with the experience, often with a helpful guide, we can face the more of who we are, come into the more. And so I think, getting back to Conclave, this is what the film so beautifully brought out, was you saw the absolutist in one of the cardinals. I guess we should say what the conclave is. The conclave is the decision-making body of cardinals in the Catholic Church that gets together after a pope dies to decide on the next pope. And it's a very tense and often political decision-making process. But this film really, to me, gave us the three basic problems of our time. And that was embodied in the absolutist cardinal, I think his name was Tedesco, who insisted on having a very rigid pope as the next leader, as somebody who stuck to doctrine, absolutely,
Yes.
and who kept the other out of the Catholic Church. And he even referred to Islam, keep it out. They're other. They're not even human in a sense. And then you had on the other side the relativists who seemed to be open on the surface, but were in a way not really engaging, like you were saying before, engaging reality.
Yes.
The challenge of reality. They were skimming the surface with their openness. So they were susceptible to all kinds of manipulation and deception and a kind of expedient ways of living rather than a really present and thoughtful ways of living. And then you had in the middle those two poles, which I think most people can see in our society now. You had what I would call the dynamic centrists, perhaps, maybe moving toward a vibrant center, who were struggling with these sides and where to go with the Catholic Church. But by implication, it was about much more than the Catholic Church. Our society, where to go with our society, our world, as we move into this difficult future. And so this is where the main protagonist, Cardinal Lawrence, gives a wonderful speech on the problem of certitude.
Yes.
Which just sounds like Paul Tillich and Kierkegaard.
Yes. That's right. Beautiful. That's right.
And he raises questions. Yeah.
Yes. So it also touches, the human nature, human mindset, including, the hypocrisy once Jesus pointed out. So I have been trying to articulate on a term which I called the intermingleness of light and shadow. So, we see the intermingleness of light and shadow.
I like them.
So when I watch Conclave, I see the separation, the isolation of light and shadow. So this creates really a problem.
Yes.
So in my understanding, the healthy state of mind is the intermingleness of light and shadow.
Beautiful.
They integrated rather than separated or rather than isolated. So that's also the situation.
Yes. That's a beautiful term. And I think Cardinal Lawrence was moving in that direction. He was trying to help people see the value and the beauty of that intermingling of light and shadow for a fuller life.
Yes.
For a deeper life.
Yes.
And Cardinal Benitez, who maybe is the biggest hero of that story, who actually embodied a lot of these uncomfortable places himself. I don't know how much to tell people because they need to see the film. I don't want to say too much more. But he gives a very powerful speech also about how we are small men here when we are one pole or the other.
Yes.
And I've been in wars and I've seen the pain of people. But let us be larger men here, larger people. Let us recognize the tragic sides of life, but that they go with the great possibilities of who we can be and who we can move toward. And he was living that, it seems to me.